Now, this involves what the city of New York says they got 2,800 trap shops in New York, and they want to try to do something about it. Oh, a couple years back, the legislature in New York passed their marijuana law, okay? But this was a statewide law, and it didn't give local jurisdictions, the cities and counties there, much power over the industry. And so apparently, these cities went to the legislature again and wanted some more power given to them. And so they granted them the power locally in these municipalities to take actions against these trap shops. And New York has taken action by issuing summons. If you're a trap shop, they issue a summons that tells you you're a trap shop, and now we're going to take action against you. But they vested the sheriff with the power to go in and close you down without any judicial involvement. That's what caught my attention, because I've tried a lot of cases in administrative courts, and they typically are limited. Judges are attorneys who are may or may not be versed in the law, and evidence is allowed in there that you would never get into a court. And one of the things that's allowable is to go get an administrative warrant. And due process in this country, the Constitution requires that you have notice and an opportunity to be heard. And there are circumstances where the courts allow police officers to take action under exigent circumstances by themselves, but there's only so far they can go before they got to go back to the courts and get approval to go out and execute warrants and do things like disturb people's rights without a court being involved. Now, one of the things that we're seeing out of our Supreme Court right now is a desire to rein in the administrative state. This case was filed in federal court in New York, and that gives you a direct pathway right up to the appellate court into the Supreme Court. And I expect that whatever happens here, the city of New York or these trap shop owners are going to go in and argue that this is too much power to be given without court involvement. And what appears to have happened is they went out and did some inspections of these trap shops, gathered up evidence, and then without going into the administrative court for an administrative warrant, sheriff issued an order which closed them down. Now, that's preemptive action without court involvement, and it typically has to involve exigent circumstances. In this case, they're trying to argue that those circumstances involve public health and safety because these trap shops are too close to schools, things like that, or they are actually doing some manufacturing inside the facility that makes them a public health risk, authorizing the sheriff to go in and close them down. And I'm just here to tell you, this reeks of unconstitutionality. And in the climate we're in right now, where the United States Supreme Court seems willing to go rein this in, I wouldn't be surprised that this case or something similar makes its way up, and they issue some order that this exceeds the administrative law system's authority to go in and preemptively take away people's rights without having a hearing, violation of due process. Now, when it comes to these injunctions, I don't expect that a court's going to enjoin the local sheriff in the way that these people want. They want their permits to operate again, and I don't see that happening because they can't say what they're doing is legal. But as far as asking them to find this to be unconstitutional and to enjoin the sheriff from doing it anymore without going to a court first, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that come out of this. Injunctions are hard to get. You've got to show that you've got irreparable harm, that the balance of equities is on your side. And I just don't see that here for these trap shop owners. They're engaged in illegal activity. They won't even bring up what they're doing because they know that what they're doing is illegal. But I think the argument that you should not invest the law enforcement authorities with this kind of power without court intervention, I think that's going to get some traction. Now, California's had to deal with this for a long time. They threw it to local jurisdictions to go through permitting and zoning, and I mean, there's all sorts of battles. But no administrative agency was given the authority to go in and shutter a business without some court intervention in California. And so I'm hoping that somebody stands up and tells the sheriff, you don't have this kind of authority, you've got to go talk to a judge. And then after that, we'll deal with it in court. I'm going to throw this back at you all for what you think about this. But I think the pendulum is swinging towards the court stepping in and reining in some of the exercise of power outside of the authorized court systems. What do you guys all think about this?
I am so shocked right now, Dale, that the state of New York is using powers that it doesn't have to prosecute its citizens. I am so shocked by this right now. I have never heard of anything like this ever happening before.
Yeah. Well, this is the cheap way, and in most cases, the government wins at administrative law proceedings. It's a frustrating thing when you go into these proceedings. And so rather than using the criminal system, if you're engaged in illegal activity, go get a warrant and follow the criminal system. But what they know is everybody gets a lawyer. You go to court. The court is not going to just allow you to do what you want to do. In administrative proceedings, if you give people notice, hey, you have 48 hours, you have 4 days, whatever, to close this down, or we're going to take action against you, and then have a hearing at that point. I think that's a safer way, but that's more expensive. They don't want to do that. They want to cut right through all this, be as cheap as they can. And, you know, our Constitution does not have, let's be cheap for the government as any part of it. There are rules that restrict the government from doing shit, and they just continue to want to keep doing it. And I just hope they get spanked a little bit here.
I mean, what do you think about this, Rico? New York.
I think New York is doing just what New York is going to do, and the rest of the states are going to be trying to do the same thing. This is a disturbing trend that continues in America, and of course they're going to defend their actions on this bullshit. So
interesting.
I don't know. I don't have hope. I don't have any hope in the system. So you know how I feel about that. Light a match.
Rico wants to burn it all down.
Yeah, Rico always wants to burn it all down.
I'm not saying I want to. Saying
wants to watch it burn. My bad.
It's a solution.
Well, but we do have a constitution. As much as people want to jump up and down and think that this court is doing horrible, terrible things, if you read the Constitution, each of the three parts of our government have certain amounts of power. That's now been taken down to the states, and each state has delineations and separation of power. The legislative body makes laws, the executive body enforces the laws, and the courts step in to make sure those other two bodies aren't getting out of line. And I think if we go back to some of that, it'll be safer in this country. It's going to be more expensive. It'll be more frustrating. But the administrative state has grown to a point where it is just an overstuffed beached whale. It's hard to get anything out of them, and it's just very frustrating.
I love that analogy, Dale. What do you have to say, Jenny?
I was waiting on Dale to say bullshit. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see what happens.
Bullshit.
There it is. It's bullshit.
I want to cut to the action.
I mean, Rico saying burn it all to the ground is crazy. He sounds like a January 6th kind of guy. But, I mean, I think that we'll see what happens. I think that we see the administrative bodies and bureaucrats step over their power all the time, for, whether it's the body of finance, whatever department it is. So it would be nice to see the courts get them in line. But I am going to go ahead and also side with Dale. I don't see the court ruling against the government too terribly often.
No, they got a bunch of woke judges in New York that is just going to side with the state and not even hear the arguments or legal arguments, as we've seen happen in other cases throughout New York's judicial process these last couple of years.
It's already burning.
It's already. He's like, we just need some kindling and some lighter fluid, and it's ready to go.
You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to really empathize with Rome. Because this must be what it felt like. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. It all burns down, and you're just wondering why you were not the one that lit the match. Control your destiny, ladies and gentlemen.
Sad state of affairs. Any thoughts on this, Stone, before we go to commercial?
No, go ahead and hit the commercial, man.
All right, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.